listening to Her Profit Era, the podcast for founders who want a business that actually works, a business that's profitable, predictable, and pays them well. I'm Cindy Kumar, a CPA, a fractional CFO from Abbotsford, BC, Canada. I'm the person founders call when they're tired of high revenue months with no money left over. I started this podcast because too many founders were chasing sales while their margins, cash flow, and bank accounts told a completely different story. I believe profit and money in the bank is the standard, not a bonus, and that every founder deserves clarity around their numbers. Each week, you'll get real financial strategy you can actually use and honest conversations with founders and industry experts about what it really takes to build a business that lasts. Today, I'm joined by Dana Foster, an entrepreneur and mentor to moms building businesses alongside raising families. She began her career in healthcare before becoming a mom, and that transition shifted how she saw work, ambition, and capacity. As she started building her own business, she quickly realized that there was a gap in how moms were being supported. Most of the guidance she came across didn't reflect the reality of raising kids while trying to grow something of your own. That experience shaped how she approaches her own business now. She had to learn how to set boundaries and build in a way that actually fit her lifestyle rather than competing with it. We talk about what changes when you're running a business as a mom, why boundaries become practical, not optional, and how she now supports other moms in building businesses that align with their real life. So let's get into the conversation. Hi, Dana. Thanks so much for joining me on our Profit Era.
Hi, thanks, Cindy. I'm so excited to be here today.
Could you share a little bit about yourself and how you support your clients?
Yeah, of course. So I am a business coach, but I'm a business coach specifically for mom entrepreneurs. So I call myself a holistic business coach because, in my experience, moms just didn't get enough support from all different angles in terms of not just growing your business, but how do you keep your business sustainable when you've got mouths to feed and a partner to pay attention to. So we really kind of intertwine all of that together while we build or scale your business at the same time.
Oh,
So I
wow.
kind of really focused in onto that mom entrepreneur group.
That's amazing. And what was it like starting the business? Because I know we were chatting and you were part of different coaching programs, but none of those people had kids.
Yeah. So actually, when I started my business, when I started coaching in general, I was in the gut health world.
Oh,
So
wow.
I came
Totally different.
into totally different. I came into entrepreneurship, utilizing my background. I'm a pharmacist by training and wanting to help women improve their gut health. I went through a lot medically after having my second baby, and doctors did not know how to help me. And so, but they were supportive. They were like, hey, you're smart, you're a pharmacist. Like,
Yes.
if you figure it out, we're here to support you. But it got me thinking, okay, if that's the answer for me who knows the questions to ask, what is that like for someone who doesn't have a healthcare background? So I really set out to help moms feel more themselves postpartum. But yeah, when I jumped into coaching and investing in my ability to run a business, I found very quickly that the thought process of running a business was not really aligned. There wasn't really a lot of overlap in terms of what that looked like during motherhood. So I went through a couple different programs where, we did the business stuff, we worked on content, we worked on sales conversations. But whenever I had questions on, okay, how do I realistically fit this into my life right now? Like, how do I make this work without completely burning out? Because I had worked in the ICU for 10 years and I had switched this thought process because I didn't want to burn out. I wanted to have more flexibility with my time. I wanted to have more choices with how I was using my time. And so, yes, I was learning. Yes, I was growing in my business, but I was like, I see myself landing back where I was, 10 years ago in the ICU, just completely burnt out. And so when I tried to get support there, there was
Yeah.
really no help. Some of the answers I got were like, well, maybe this just isn't the right time for you, and that did not sit well with me.
Wow.
Or I don't know how to help you. You're just gonna have to figure that part out. So in those seasons, I mean, the first one I was in was 3 months, and then the second one I was in was 4 months. So they're pretty long chunks of time that I was working with these groups.
Yeah.
Um, I just got to feel more and more like I've got to fill this gap because I felt like we needed more support than what we were getting. And if I was looking for that and I couldn't find it, I wanted to be someone to be able to help moms do that because it kind of is a different world when you jump into it. It's business alone is stressful,
So
but when
true.
you add everything else into it, it's just like it can get overwhelming. And so I wanted to be able to support moms in that.
Did you eventually find like a mom's like group coaching program, or is that kind of like where the switch went and you're like, I need to create this?
That's where the switch went. Yeah, I couldn't really find anything that aligned with where I was at in terms of like a service-based business. So, I built one. I built out the coaching programs for it. I, worked through the marketing that had worked for me and the different strategies that I had in terms of different types of businesses that you can run within a service or coaching based business, and really found that people were intrigued by it and people were curious about it because it was something that they really hadn't heard much of before. I think a lot of the mom world in business had really started out from like the influencer type. Like
So
there was a
true.
lot of
Yeah.
support there of like, oh, here are your affiliate links and like network
Right.
marketing and things like that. But when it came down to like a true like LLC S corp type business, like it kind of started to disconnect a little bit. So getting into that, women were interested and wanted to hear more about what that looked like on the inside in terms of like what holistic support is in our season. And so I ran with it. And I feel like people need different levels of support. So I've got like coaching that I do one on one with my moms, but then I've also got communities that I run because even if you don't need high level support, I think it's
Yeah.
a season of life where like you need other people around you who get it, who understand
So
that you're
true.
going to be complaining about that sales call and about your kids not sleeping at the same time.
That's so true because if you're part of like groups that are like doing like hustle culture, then it just like you're just thinking like I'm not meant for this. You're putting yourself down and like you just feel like nothing's working.
Yeah, and it's like that imposter syndrome of like I'm not
Yeah.
supposed to be here. Like they can work on the weekends or evenings or get caught up and this and
Yeah.
that, or they have time to rest and I'm not resting, and you get
Yeah.
in your head so easily.
Yeah, so true. Did you always know like you wanted kids?
Yes, but I don't think I ever really thought about when.
Hmm.
So thinking back to when I was in healthcare, I was super career oriented. I like wanted to get all the certifications and I wanted to be like the person that you knew, if you had questions about XYZ,
Yeah.
and be a part of all these big organizations. Like I just had all these aspirations that I wanted to reach. And so after I got married, I was in residency. I was still kind of in the thick of it, and kids weren't really on our radar.
Yeah.
Um, and my husband's a firefighter, so that kind of like adds a whole nother layer of complexity to like
Wow.
what it's like managing, the home with a partner who's away.
Yeah.
But he was ready before I was. I was like, I've got things to do. Like I can't have kids yet. I haven't gotten to this level, or I haven't, been a leader in this organization. And so it was hard for me for a while to be like, okay, I'm gonna have to figure out how to adjust. And for a while, I thought too, like I would have kids and nothing would change.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously it did change, but I think I led up into that season thinking that what I was doing was sustainable in the way that I was doing it. And then just learned that I needed to pivot. And that's not necessarily bad. And I think that's kind of what I focus on is that yes, we do things differently. Yes, we have different concerns or different responsibilities. Yes, we might not need to pivot a little bit from that original plan, but that's not a negative thing.
Yeah. What was your mindset like when you got pregnant, but you were thinking about all these aspirations and things you wanted to do?
I was literally thinking about applying for like different positions while I was on maternity leave. I
Oh,
was like, oh,
wow.
like while I'm breastfeeding, I can just continue to do this research, or I could like finish up this project on this side. Like, I think I had this idea that it was just I was adding a baby to what I had built
Right.
and not reorganizing things around having a child. And so honestly, I was clueless. I feel like I was probably one of my first friends to like have a kid in this season and try to figure out how to make everything combine. And so I fumbled. I fumbled a lot. There was a lot of times where I was like, maybe taking on that authorship role wasn't the right
Mhm.
thing to do. And
Yeah.
so I learned by failing. I got really good at being okay with being like, well, that was the wrong decision and just pivoted. And I think because I just fumbled through it so much, I feel confident talking to people who are also going through it or wanting to consider go through it because I had to figure that out in real time. And a lot of times alone, with my
Yeah.
husband being gone of like, okay, now when he's gone, I mean, that used to be the time where I would get everything done. I was like, he's at work
Well,
for two
yeah.
days. I can clean, I can do laundry, I can get work done. Like, this is great. And then he comes home and we can hang out. Then it was the exact opposite. I was like, what? Now I can't do any of that. Now I need to clean when you get home and work when you get home.
Yeah.
And so those thought processes of like what worked pre-kid was almost the opposite post-kid. And so I had to figure out how to make that work where I could still reach a level of productivity without, losing my mind or dropping a ball in a different area that felt like was important at that time.
How long did it take you to adjust to that transition kind of period?
Gosh, a couple months. I mean, and as the babies grow up, they give you different challenges too, right?
Right.
And I think that, as much as changing or figuring out what you could do differently or how you could make it work, you really just learn how to pivot in different seasons. And you learn to, I don't know, are you type A or like
Yeah, I'm
Enneagram?
very structured.
Okay. So that was hard for me. I was like, no, we wake up at this time, we go to bed at this time, we do
Yeah.
X, Y, Z. And that probably took me the longest of just
Mhm.
like I had to be okay with if my kids woke up before I was done with my morning routine, how was I going to manage that? Because for a while I let it allow me to spiral. I was like, I mean, I had 10 more minutes of my morning routine. Now they're awake and, all
Yeah.
grumpy. And then you realize, okay, well, can I just put them in my bed for 10 minutes while I finish this? And that's usually fine. They just want to hang out there and have their milk in the morning, and I can finish what I need to get finished just in a little different way than I was used to before. And so you kind of get used to allowing them to change what you think is normal and allowing yourself to make these little changes to benefit the whole
Yeah.
versus be so focused kind of on exactly what you need as a woman, but not disowning that either. Like, I'm not saying give those things away. You
Yeah.
change your outlook a little bit in terms of like how you actually get it done.
And with like planning mat leave, did you feel like you had like a comfortable amount like savings and like planning like the finances out?
It was hit or miss. So the first one, yeah, the first one we were ready. I had plenty of time saved. We had money saved up that allowed me to take off. I took off about 3 months with the first kid.
Oh, wow.
Um, Now I had my kids back to back. So I found out I was pregnant with my second child, um, 8 weeks after I had my
Oh,
first child.
wow.
So I didn't even know you could get pregnant that fast, but apparently. So my kids are only 11 months apart. So we went through that first year of my oldest, my daughter's life. I was growing another baby. I ended up having hyperemesis, which basically means you're throwing up all day long. So I had lots of like sick leave with that, and it drained our savings in terms of like what I had for kid number two. So we had to be really structured, knowing that we lived very comfortably after kid number one, and kid number two was going to be a little bit more We had to be in tune with our finances going into that because what I did know is that that time after having the kid
Yeah.
really difficult, and I needed that blanket. I needed that cushion to be able to say, okay, I'm not going to work during this time frame because I'm taking care of our kids. And so we knew walking into that second season, which I'm really glad that's kind of how it worked out. Cause I feel like if it was the first one, I wouldn't have had the same thought process. I think I would have been like, oh, it'll be fine. Like I'll
Yeah.
do work here and there and this and that. And so that really gave me the clarity to be like, no, we've got to figure out how to structure this to where I have structured me time. And I think that's something that, as entrepreneurs alone, we don't do very well. We
No.
never say, okay, this is my time. I feel like even if there's like a spa day, I'm like, okay, checking my phone or like I have my computer just in case,
Yeah.
and I feel like postpartum is just really that time frame where you've got to allow yourself to disconnect just a little bit. And that might be giving the reins away a little bit. That might be putting up a little bit of a hiatus and kind of working your way to a comfortable bank account before the baby comes. And different people have different timelines there.
Yeah.
Um, I would say like those first 4 weeks for me were the most important for me to disconnect.
That,
And so I figured that out on the first round and I kind of secured that on the second round in terms of just making sure that I had that time because you're tired, you're not sleeping, your hormones are crazy. And when you think about what it takes to be in business or to make, logical decisions at work, you need that brain power to be able to do that.
yeah.
And whatever mom is, baby is at that point. If you are frustrated, your baby's frustrated. And it's this like continual feedback loop. And so protecting yourself is really important. And so I think running into that second maternity leave, I knew we weren't going to be at like the financial goals that we wanted to be,
Yeah.
but I felt comforted just knowing that I would have that time with my child, that I wasn't expected to work or, have to do anything to bring money in, and that we would make it through at least that time period. So those are kind of all things that we talked about in terms of like how prepared are we? How prepared do we feel? And got communication with your partner is like the ultimate in that time frame. And I think that's something that I really sucked at before kids,
Yeah.
that kids has taught me is the foundation of being a successful, business owner, mom, and partner. You've got to communicate. And that probably took me the longest, to be honest with you.
Wow. Yeah, I find like a lot of people are more like reactive when it comes to like maternity leave, planning for kids. And I think like before it was like, okay, like the cost of everything is going up now. So it's like people are more conscious too.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I feel like a reactivity kind of feels natural to us
Yeah.
too, in a way. I feel like we have to react all day long, so we're like, I'll just figure And it's hard to reframe that into a way that's like, yeah, I'll figure it out. And yes, I'm going to have to react,
Yeah.
but how can I prepare myself in the best way possible to not have to um, react negatively or blow up because I'm having to pivot so hard in that season? Because we're
Yeah.
going to have to react, but I guess like we can really tee in on exactly how much we're going to have to react based on, how you prepare.
So true. Yeah, I work with a lot of women that are like planning to have kids in the next 2 to 3 years, and I always like challenge them, like go on Amazon, look at like diapers, cribs, like stroller, look at like all these things. And then if you're planning to go back to work, you want to have enough saved up where you don't feel like you have the baby and then all of a sudden you have to do client work to start making money again. Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly. It adds up.
it
It
does.
adds
Yeah.
so quickly. I remember when my kids got out of diapers, we were like, oh, it's a pay raise. Like that was literally a pay raise to get them out of diapers. And then you think about like, school. So my kids go to pre-K, we pay for
Yeah.
school, and that's a mortgage.
Yeah.
So those are all things to think about. And I think, there's flexibility within that too, in terms of do you go to school full time or part time? Do you need the like expensive luxury diapers or are you cool with Pampers? Like
Right.
there are individual like thought processes and, decisions you can make regarding all those things. But in the end, they do add up. So, like, yes, I got less Botox after having kids because
Yeah.
my Botox fund went to the diapers. So, like, things just kind of start to transition. And I think I thought that it would bother me a lot more than it actually did.
Yeah.
Like when you get into it, I mean, honestly, your mindset just starts to shift. I came to a point where I wasn't as like, I've got to reach this level in my company or I have to hit this income goal this month.
Yeah.
It was all like what is reasonable and sustainable that like I can still log off at 5 and go play with my kids at night and I can get up in the morning and work out and take care of myself. Um, because I think before, and I mean, my kids are 4 and 5 now, so I've been in kind of this season a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But I feel like before I was like, there's no ceiling. I'm gonna do
Yeah.
more. I'm gonna get more money. I'm gonna hit more ranks. Is
Yeah.
that kind of the same mantra now? Like, is that what it still feels like? Yeah.
Yeah. And like, what advice would you give to a woman that has that mindset, but then she's also thinking, should I have kids? Should I not? Or should I wait?
hmm So I think that naturally, as women, your mindset will adjust at least a touch in terms of what your overall goals are after kids. And it sounds woo woo, it sounds all like
Yeah.
in your feelings, but like you're not going to understand that until that baby's in your arms. And different people will adjust at different amounts. Some mamas are ready to go back after 4 weeks and get going. Some people want to wait 6 months. And I think the overall thought process and like advice I have there is that there is a way for it to work. I don't want to scare anyone away from having kids and running a business because I know it's possible. I help women every single day figure out how it's possible. It just takes a couple of little adjustments. And whether or not your goals or like what that ultimate success definition is for you changes before and after kids, it's possible, but it's probably just in a different pathway than what you originally thought it was going to be. And so I think, especially for people like us who are very, goal oriented,
Yeah.
type A, like, I don't know, growing up, I was like, okay, I'm gonna get married at 23. We're gonna have
Yeah.
kids by like 27.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, no, none of that happened, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of just get to a point where you realize that it's gonna happen if I want it because we're the kind of people who make it happen, right?
Right.
We might need some more support. It might take a little bit longer to get there, but I feel, at my core that being able to balance motherhood, being a wife, running a business, and taking care of myself and like still being able to focus on my own self-care, being able to do all of that makes you a powerful CEO. Like you get
How do you,
so I was like, you just get
sorry,
so
go
many
ahead.
you get so many different types of experiences through that, and you learn how to juggle so many things. And so by allowing yourself to take on all of those roles and like know you're still going to be successful in all of them, you are so productive, you are so efficient, and you're a lot more decisive than I think you probably will ever be when you're in those roles. You don't have time to not be decisive. So it
Mhm.
almost throws you into this like high level functioning like manager of everything. You're managing the house, you're managing your business, you're managing your own self-care. And so the moms that I see who have figured out how to really pull all of that together are just powerhouses.
How do you like set those boundaries to be like, no, this is like my self-care time or like I'm logging off my laptop at 5 p.m. Because I feel like a lot of, especially ambitious women, like you feel like you should always be on and available for your clients.
Yeah. So I feel like that's something that each person will play with as they kind of figure things out. I think it depends on the business you're in. I think one thing that, my generation, I'm a millennial, we struggled a
Yeah.
lot with like always being available.
Yeah.
I will be there for you. I will answer your text in 5 minutes. Like my email notifications go off around the clock. And what I found is that when you set those boundaries, whatever that looks like for you, that people respect you and your space a lot more and will adhere to those boundaries when you set them. Making yourself fully available almost decreases the value of what you give. And if you can set those boundaries in a way, and like, a lot of the moms I work with, some will work a couple evenings a week, some will work one day a weekend, something like that to be able to balance, whatever their life looks like.
Yeah,
So the boundary doesn't have to be Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. The
so
boundary can be
true.
something completely different. It's completely up to the individual. But whatever that boundary is, adhering to that and just being very clear about that. I've got clauses in my contracts that are like, I will respond in this amount of time on during weekdays, or I have what I call a mom clause, which is I may have something that I need to go to at a moment's notice for my child, an emergency, a pickup, or they're
Yeah,
sick. I will let you know within 30 minutes of our call. I expect the same from you. If you
yeah,
have something emergent come up, like I understand, and that's okay, and that's not going to minimize the value that we bring to each other. It's the communication that really sits at the top there, and allows those boundaries to be very clear. So instead of me sitting here being like, "Oh, my son has 103 fever, I need to take him to the doctor, but I have this client call,"
yeah,
I know that I've set those things in place that allow me to be able to take care of him and then come back and give my client just as much, if not more, than I would have given them if he didn't have 103 fever. And so those are just things you kind of fall into where you get into these situations and you're like, what am I supposed to do? You figure out what that boundary looks like and what that communication needs to look like to make it work, and then you put it in place. And so a lot of it's stuff happening to you, you realizing it's something that you need to organize or set up a path for,
yeah.
and then setting it up. That's really all it is. And I have never been in a situation, and even working with men with like partnerships, and like UGC and collaborations, being very clear with them, honestly, they respond really well to
Wow.
that. They respond a lot better to that than they respond to me sending middle of the night emails, which is what I used to do. Setting those boundaries really helps, I think, rapport, but then it helps you as a person mentally so much. And honestly, I think that's important pre kids, post kids, whenever. I think those are really good qualities to have, because it allow you to be better in your business for longer. As I know, I teetered on burnout in multiple phases of life, and that's something that I'm like very confident I'm not close to at this point because I've done that.
That's such great advice, adding that into your contract.
That's the beauty of writing your own contracts, right? You have to have
Right.
certain things in there, but those boundaries, like those are contractual boundaries for me.
Yeah.
Um, like I've come to the decision where like that's extremely important to me being able to run my business at a high level, so they go in that contract.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of people just use like copy and paste contracts, but they're not actually thinking about like their business, what they want, and like boundaries they want to set.
100%. Yeah, I think, we got you so used to the legality of things, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this is a business venture and it's a big company and this and that, and contracts can totally evolve with the field of entrepreneurship. And I think especially now because smaller businesses, LLCs are very common. There's a big push in terms of being your own boss, that we can adjust those contracts to one, yes, allow us to be safe from a legal standpoint, but two, also to protect us holistically. Um, and so working with, there's a ton of legal companies out there that help small businesses with things like that to ensure you have all the basics in there, but then if you need to add things, they will also help you add those things in there that keep those boundaries clear, in a contractual sense. That way you're not just saying like, hey, I might have to leave to go take my kid to the doctor. It's like,
Yeah.
no, it's here. And we're both on the same page there.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Do you work with like moms like when their kids hit a certain like age level, or is it like all moms?
It's really all moms. I would say for the most part, I'm working with moms who have kids somewhere between 2 and 10.
Oh wow.
Um, I think that it really depends on the person because if your kid's in your household, your kid's going to impact your life in some way. I've got
Right.
clients who have teenage kids who they're like they're Uber drivers, getting them to swim practice and things like that. So like they're sleeping the whole night, but they're in the car a lot more than anyone else is.
So true.
So how do we adjust your business to be able to be manageable in your car efficiently while you're waiting at swim practice? So I think there's challenges along the way. I think a lot of mom thinks that, once your kid's sleeping through the night, that like all your worries are done, or once they go to school. And I think they really push back at us in different seasons of what they need from you. And so it's a continual journey of like, okay, this is my business and here are my goals. And then
Yeah.
how do I mold that to be workable and sustainable with, what I'm being asked to do from a household perspective. So yeah, it's interesting to see too, because when you put those two together, the thought process of what's
Yeah.
hard is so different, right? So like we're over here complaining like my kids are not sleeping through the night, I'm running
Yeah.
on caffeine. And then the moms who have teenagers are like, okay, well, you're not in the car for, I mean, we're not, fighting about it, but like you're not in the
Yeah.
car for 8 hours a day trying to do XYZ with no Wi-Fi. And so it's like the perspective of each season can be so different, but it also helps balance each other of like, okay, I know my season of my kids not sleeping is not going to be forever. They're going to hit a point where they sleep, but I feel more rested. And then, they're reminiscing back of like, I remember how difficult that was. And now I just have a different challenge now in terms of how I'm running things. And so it's just nice to have that back and forth of like, you're not alone. There are a lot of people in this season that understand and are also having to bend and flex to make it work.
Yeah.
But I think we all want, I mean, I feel like if we didn't want it, we wouldn't be entrepreneurs because you really
So
got to
true.
want it. You really got like you're kind of jumping over barriers and boundaries every day. So it's a different barrier and boundary to jump over,
Yeah.
but we figure it out.
That makes sense. Do you feel like you're just as ambitious as you were prior to having kids, or has it evolved?
It's definitely evolved, but I think it's evolved in a different way. So my ambition pre-kids was very title based. I wanted all the titles. I wanted to be known. I wanted like the recognition. Now my ambitiousness is I want to run a successful business in terms of what my definition of success is. I talk about that a lot with my moms of like, you
Yeah.
do not need 30K months to be successful. Like, what does success look like to you? And for some moms, that's I want to be able to support taking my family to the beach once a year and I want to pay that out of my income. And for some moms, it's I want those 30K months.
Yeah.
And so, like, what does success look like to you? So, I want to run my business successfully and I want to maintain the ability to show up for my children. I grew up in a situation where my parents were not around very often. I grew up with my grandparents, and they worked a lot and did not have the funds to provide, like, any sort of lavish lifestyle. We were very middle class, lower middle class, but I still didn't get to ever see them. So it's like it was really difficult for me to understand of like, okay, well, other friends that their parents are gone all the time,
Yeah.
at least they're going on trips or they're doing whatever. And I never really got it. So it really scared me away from entrepreneurship initially. And then as I figured out the benefits of running your own business and working for yourself, I started to slowly think about that transition. And so my ambition from that standpoint now is how do I run something so successful and how do I continue to show up as a mom for my kids and show, and this is going to be a little biased, but like
Yeah.
really show my daughter what's possible. Like, yes, you can be a mom, you can run a business, you can be a powerhouse, and you can still show up for your family. Like, all of those are possible together. And I want her to know that as she grows up. So, I think my ambitions kind of become more holistic now after kids. It's like the title doesn't matter as much,
Right.
impact matters more to me, both externally and internally within our family. And so, I'm not getting certificates to add letters to my name, but I am teaching my daughter what it looks like to like secure work and secure self-care so that I can buy her a Barbie dress and show her what that work-life balance looks like in a healthy way that, is fulfilled and is does have the ability to enjoy life too. And so we talk about all the time. she asked for to go to the beach for her birthday.
Aw.
And so we talked a lot about, okay, we can talk about this, but here's what that means.
Yeah.
You know, mommy is providing for you. So when mommy goes on a client call, when mommy's on her computer or on her phone, we are working towards allowing you to go to the beach for your birthday. And so there's those little things of like, I'm teaching her what a positive relationship with work looks like and
Yeah.
showing her what work can become if you allow it. Like, okay, mom's going to work, but we're going to get to go to the beach for a week and spend, wonderful time together and do all these things. And that's what doing something you loved allowed. And so I think that's something that I really struggled with. I always thought work was bad. I
Yeah.
thought it was a negative thing. I thought it was what pulled my parents away from me. And now I get to kind of break that cycle and show my kids that it's not a negative thing. It's actually a positive thing. It makes me really happy to do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I also get to provide for you and be here for you and give you these things that, give us all great memories together. And so it's so different than I think I ever thought it would be, but in a really good way.
How old was your daughter when you started to have those kind of conversations?
About 4, right when
Oh,
she
wow.
turned 4, she was
Yeah.
starting to understand mom was working and what she was doing and things like that. Um, I probably could have started a little bit earlier. I think probably around 3, she was starting to kind of figure out that mom was doing different things and it wasn't just all being mom. And so, but around 4, she really understood. And so she even, if I go pull my laptop out, she's like, "Mom, can I work with you?" And I'm like, "Of
Aw.
course you can work with me." And so like I've got my laptop out on the kitchen table and she's
Yeah.
coloring. That's like her thought process of like working.
Yeah.
And so that's why I also don't feel like it's impossible because like I bring them into a lot that I do. Like they know what my boundaries are in terms of my work schedule and where I work and what I'm doing. And they've kind of molded themselves into that.
Yeah.
And was it like all rainbows and butterflies in the beginning? No. Like there's definitely moments where I've got my son just like hammering on my keyboard and I'm like, just don't press enter so that it doesn't send to the client. But, as you work towards it, they understand and they get it. And I think the more that we can stay self-regulated, the better
Yeah.
because it allows us to show them that there's different ways to do things and that mommy working isn't a bad thing because I just yell at you because you're trying to talk to my computer or you're pulling my AirPod out or whatever that looks like. And so it takes practice. But like once you get to a point where they get it and they understand, it's actually really fun because we're getting to the point where we're asking my daughter, okay, are you ready to work for that Barbie dress?
Aw.
Like what are we doing? Like how are you going to make money? Like building that mindset of, I can build something on my own to benefit from. And it's fun seeing like little kids' heads work in that direction too.
So
So,
true.
yeah,
Would you recommend more moms to have those conversations early on?
I would. I would. I think we were just taught that work and life are separate.
Yeah.
I think that's how historically it was, right? Like the woman would stay in the home for the most part, the man would go to work, and that's not how it is anymore. A lot of, women, do want a little bit more than that. And so they go for running their own business or having a part-time job.
Yeah.
And I think instead of that separation, if we can blend things together, if we can have those conversations together of why they work interchangeably, why they blend together to allow us to live the life that we live,
Yeah.
it allows our kids to think about it as less of a negative thing and more of a positive thing.
That's so true.
Because I feel like work, people say work's negative, work makes you tired. I come home drained from work. And I hope that this generation can flip that script a little bit
Yeah.
because it doesn't have to be true. You don't have to sit in that narrative of work sucks and I'm tired and all this, but I made some money.
Yeah.
I think it can be both. It can be something you're good at, something you're passionate about, something that you are like, oh, I feel fulfilled after that day. And teaching our kids that is really important because like I said, we're the ones who are going to flip that script for them.
Yeah. I think it's also like the mindset that like money is hard to make or you have to work hard to earn it. And like you see people just like doing things that they don't enjoy so they can
Mhm.
earn that money.
Yeah, 100%. I think too, like just the way that we look at income. I think
Yeah.
is just so different these days than how we've ever looked at it in the past. And when you actually put a dollar to a time frame, like how much money you make per hour versus a dollar to the value you provide, I think that's the shift we're in.
Yeah.
Because when you talk to like my parents or older generations, it's like, how much do you make for an 8-hour workday?
Yeah.
And it's just we're trying to like change that into value because
Yeah.
what I can do in an hour
Yeah.
is a different value than what someone else can do in an hour. And so by changing that perspective to like a value-based income and like the value that you provide can reflect the income that you make, I think one helps people excel better because you're going to have those hard workers and high achievers be able to make more and get more because they're getting more done in that hour, versus just saying, oh, whatever you get done in that hour,
Yeah.
even if the person across from you just sits there, you're going to make the same amount of money. That devalues things. And so that's the thought process. I think a lot of us still work through that in terms
Yeah.
of like,
It's
okay,
all
well,
mental.
this project's going to take me 3 hours. And so my hourly rate is, and I'm like, nope, stop. We don't, that's not how we do it.
Yeah.
And reorienting of like what I can provide is more important, I think is really important because I think they also see that too of like, okay, I don't have to go work for an hour or help dad in the yard for an hour to get $5. Like, okay, well, what is that doing? What
Yeah.
is that value providing? And like showing them that too is important and I think is a really great way to think about work and income in this new age.
Yeah, and I think there's also this perception, like as women, like we're expected to make like 3 meals a day, take care of the
Mhm.
kids, drop them at school, do all like the household chores, plus run a business. But it's like we can actually like hire help. You can hire a cleaner to come in like every month. You can do meal prep. There's so many things and tools and resources we can use to like support our lifestyle. And I think that mom guilt and that perception we've been carrying is like so hard to let go of.
It really like the perfectionism that you have in this
Yeah.
head that you're supposed to hit 100%. I posted a picture last night on my Instagram that was like literally we made mac and cheese and I warmed up some frozen peas and carrots and that's what we had for
Yeah.
dinner. That's just how it works sometimes. And I used
Yeah.
to be like, "Oh God, you're a horrible woman. You couldn't put together this like four-course meal."
Yeah.
And it's just no one cares. The kids ate half of it and they went on with their night. Like
Yeah.
it's just how different days work. And I always talk about like you have to think about the value that you provide in an hour versus, you know, outsourcing that. So like could I clean my house in 6 hours? Yes. If I did different work in 6 hours, could I make more money than I am spending outsourcing it? Yes. So like those are conscious decisions of like this is generally a net positive and it's not me spending money erroneously. This is helping us move toward a total goal. And I think that falls back into communication too. I I feel like my husband and I are very 50-50 in things, especially when he's home.
Yeah.
And I'm very clear of like, okay, you're taking the kids to school this day, and I'm picking up this day, and I have client meetings late this day, and like we have month or not monthly, but weekly meetings where we get together and
Oh,
we
wow.
talk about the week. And so we sit on the porch, we have a glass of wine or a margarita, and we're like, hey, Monday, what does Monday look like? Tuesday, what does Tuesday look like? We share a calendar. And so he knows that I'm supporting our family in multiple ways. And so when he's home, he's there to support that. When he's gone supporting our family, I know that I have the full load and I adjust my days accordingly, knowing that. And so that communication is just 100%
Yeah.
because it's my main goal is to, or one of my jobs that week is to get groceries and do the meal prep. And I'm like, I am so behind and I need to get caught up and I don't have bandwidth there. I feel totally comfortable telling him at that meeting, hey, I'm not going to be able to do that this week. Can you take over that this week or make sure that we have dinner on the table every night? So it's so much better in that kind of a setting where you're already sitting there trying to get on the same page with each other. Because he can do the same to me. He can be like, hey, I really want to go golfing on Saturday. Is that okay? Like,
Yeah.
does that fit into your schedule? Hearing that on that weekly meeting, I'm ready to take feedback and advice and give it the other direction. Whereas if he was to say that on Friday
Sorry.
evening, I'd be like, no. Like, what are you? Why are you even asking that?
Yeah.
And so it just sets up the ability to have those conversations a little bit more clearly. And it took us time to get there. It was not the most comfortable thing at first, but I wish we would have done it before kids. I'm glad we do it now because it has completely restructured how we go week to week
Yeah.
and allows us to be just better people. We're not as reactive where we're like, why would you ask that question? It's like we talked about this. This is what you need. This is what I need. And we've got a household here. Like we're running this together.
Yeah. So true. Do you experience like mom guilt at all?
I do from time to time. I have to reorient my thought process sometimes of I'm not doing enough. And I think that's again a high achievers type A person of like, I could be doing more.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you're not doing everything, you're failing. And I have to reorient that mindset of like, that's not failure. That just means that you have a lot of goals and ambitions. And so the mom guilt will primarily come in for me when I'm having to reorient my kids to a season that's busier for me. Of, oh, mom, why haven't you picked us up this week yet?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, man, I should be picking you up. But then I'm reorient that of like, okay, this is a busy season for mom. It's not going to last forever. How
Yeah.
about I pick you up next week and we go get ice cream after school? And so reorienting those pictures of like this is a moment in time and not forever helps me kind of work through those times. Um, times where I can't go to field trips because I have multiple calls and things
Yeah.
like that are always moments where I think about those things. But being in this position where you kind of run your own schedule, if I want to, I can say, hey, that third field trip this summer, block it off. Like we're not
Yeah.
scheduling anything that day so that I can go. And so you have the ability to be able to remaneuver that guilt into different, more positive things if you let yourself.
That's such great advice. And like Emma agreed, she just recently wrote a book and she talked about being like a 3 hour mom and she got so much backlash from it. So do you feel like society, we're still not there yet where moms can run the businesses, have the career, but also still be like a mom?
Oh, no, I don't think we're there yet. I love, I adore her. I think she's such a great example of
Yeah.
what doing it all can look like. And I think the where we struggle the most is that there's not one uniform for moms.
Yeah.
Like there's you can be a different mom. It doesn't mean that you're a bad mom. And so whether that means you're home with your kids all the time and you hate spending a night away from them, whether that means you're a 3 hour mom and you do really well in those 3 hours, but knowing, like hearing her content and her podcasts and things like that, like in those 3 hours,
Yeah.
she's tuned in with her kids. Her kids know
Oh,
mom
that's
is
it.
there and we've got mom. Whereas I see moms all the time. They're scrolling their phone while they're with their kids, or, they're kind of their minds off over here instead of like focused there. So there's different ways that this can be perceived and thought of in terms of what motherhood looks like. And I think what we struggle with as society is we've got this mindset of it's one size fits all. You stay at home, you run the house, you raise the kids.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we'll ever really get over that, to be honest with you. I think there's still going to be women who face backlash for wanting more and doing more ambitious things.
Yeah.
Um, I think sometimes selfishly that kind of puts a little fire under us, and we're like, watch me. Watch me.
It's also like finally someone's like opening that conversation too.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And she's so strong to be able to handle all the criticism. But I think normalizing that is something, normalizing not caring what other moms are doing
Yeah.
and figuring out what that lane looks like for you. Just it needs to happen and hopefully we can figure out how to happen. But I think it starts with women first. Like I know men have whatever their own opinions, but I think that even like within our sector as women and mothers of like, I'm not going to judge a mom who is completely content being stay at home. That if that fulfills her and her heart, that's great. I hope that she doesn't judge me for wanting a little bit more outside of that in
Yeah.
terms of running my own business. And I think the most that we can do is just support each other in whatever that vision of success looks like, knowing it's going to be different from person to person.
Yeah, so true. I also think there's like a bit of resentment too. Like a lot of women, they feel like they have the kids, they had the career, and then they don't want to go back to work or they don't know what they want to do next. And they're just kind of in this lost kind of phase where they don't even know who they are anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely go through a really early midlife crisis after having kids of like, who am I? Like, what do I do? Who do I stand for? Like, what does this life look like? And I think it's scary and it can be overwhelming, but it's honestly like when you get to the other side, it's really beautiful because you get to reformat what you think in terms of success, in terms of what your goals are. And it kind of gives us an excuse to do that. Like, I feel like for a while, like thinking back to when I was in healthcare, I think for a while I had worked so hard towards this one singular goal that even though I was
Yeah,
maybe not fully in it anymore, I was like, you still got to do it. Like, you've done all of this, you've told everybody you want XYZ, and so you've got to do it. And then like having kids kind of gave me a reason to be like, I'm gonna rethink all this. Like, what do I really want? What really makes me happy? What do I really want to focus on?
yeah,
And it almost gave me permission to like have that next chapter that I was struggling getting out of the one before.
that makes sense. What advice would you give like another mom that's like in a messy kind of phase in her business, or she's recently learned that she's pregnant? Like, what should she kind of do to prepare?
You know, I think the biggest thing, if you're feeling like things feel out of touch or out of reach or messy, I think is to take a moment and sit back and talk with your village, like whatever that looks like. You know, for me, I have close friends and my husband and my parents are around. For other people, it could be a neighbor, it could be a cousin, like whatever that looks like,
Yeah,
of just having that external person to offload on. Because a lot of times it's just you need to talk through something. I have to tell you I had a hard day. I
yeah,
have to tell you that I haven't slept in 7 days and I'm a little on edge. And you start to let go of some of that just like internal heaviness. And then you're able to really look at the full picture and see what could be better or where I could use help or what's giving me the most stress. But until you can let go of that emotional pull, it's really hard for us. We really just want to sit in this like it's so hard, like I
yeah,
just everything just feels like it's a mess and I can't pick things up and you've got to have a way to offload that before you can actually go in and strategize on how to make things better. So I think first when you feel that way, talk to somebody,
yeah.
whatever that person is for you, offload, and then take a moment to sit back and figure out where that stress and that anxiety and that messy feeling is really coming from. Because it could be in a ton of different places. It could be from work specifically, it could be from the household. If you're a mom already, it could be from your kids and figuring out how to optimize that because nothing's stagnant. There's always a way to make something better, especially if it's making you feel less than. There's a way to optimize that. If you're, working at home and you've got kids and that's the part that's just you just don't know how to fix and like I can't get work done with my kids at home,
Yeah.
hire a nanny for 2 hours a couple times a week.
Yeah.
Like there are different ways to that. I hate cleaning. I do not want to spend all day cleaning. And
Yeah.
so instead of sitting in that, I'm going to spend the money to hire someone so that I can be a little bit more mentally in different pictures versus cleaning. And so there are ways around things that you can kind of figure out once you're able to kind of clear your mind at first. And I think just knowing that if you feel messy, if you feel unsure or stuck, that there is a way out of it. Like that's not forever. That's not how it has to be. There's definitely a way to make things better.
What if you feel like you have no one to talk to? Like, for example, for myself, everyone I'm close to or like know has kids, but they've worked like 9 to 5. So, like, they're not even entrepreneurs. They don't fully understand. So, like, what should someone do in that situation?
I mean, honestly, social media is where it's at for moms and for women. I have some very, very close friends that I know that I could call on a whim that I have never met in person.
Wow.
And I love them to death. And, we connected on different things. You got me now, call me, like it's such a beautiful area. And I know there's some negatives to social media and to the internet, but I think if you find the right groups, the right communities, the right algorithms where, Threads pushes you in the right direction,
Yeah.
that you find people who are legitimately in similar seasons, have been through your season, And as you start to connect and have those conversations, you start to grow that network. And I think we forget sometimes that social media is not just there for sales.
So
Like,
true.
yes, it's the primary, probably, lead generation for a lot of us if we're service-based businesses. But it can be so much more than that too. So as I'm going through conversations and figuring out if someone's a potential client of mine or not,
Yeah.
if they're not, I don't ghost. I don't just like fall off the face of the earth. Like I continue to have conversations and interact, and some lead into really good friendships and some don't. But I think because I've treated it as community, as a place to actually socialize and engage,
Yeah.
it's turned into that for me. So I think that's completely possible for other women too. And some people are easier to talk to online or send voice memos to and things like that. And you just get used to it. And honestly, it's something that I'm really glad that I let myself get vulnerable in, because it allowed me to kind of expand what that looks like in terms of my village. And I mean, there are communities everywhere. I run my community for mom entrepreneurs. I know there are others. There's business communities, there's, women in business communities. I think putting yourself in situations where you might be the new person, you might be the only
Yeah.
one for a week, but then after that, you've got a group of people who you align with. And if you don't, you jump out and you jump into a new one. And
Yeah.
so I think as you utilize social media in a way that is for both you and your business, it just kind of becomes a little bit more comprehensive and you've got a village everywhere.
That's such like great advice. Yeah, like even sitting down and just doing your research, looking up like different people on Instagram, following them, connecting with them. I feel like we get so scared to like cold DM someone or like even comment on a post.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I had someone reach out to me a few weeks ago who found one of my YouTubes based on just Google searching, thank you
Yeah.
SEO. But she's a firefighter wife, she runs a business, and she
Oh
was
wow.
like, I have not found anyone who's been in this similar situation. So she, cold DM'd me, and we've been voice memoing back and forth and
Yeah.
walking through what that looks like in a transition of, do they want to have kids or not? And so I think those, like, you got to put yourself out there sometimes because you can really make some good connections with people if you allow yourself to be a little vulnerable.
Yeah, and just going away from that salesy kind of type of content.
Yeah. Yeah. Like she is nowhere in my niche, I'm nowhere in her niche, and
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Like we are supporting each other and have those conversations, and I think that's a huge part that we forget about social media sometimes.
So true. Are you like accepting new clients? What does it look like working with you?
Yeah, so right now I work with about 3 moms at a time. So I've got a couple spots open for July. I roll on a monthly basis. And then my community is always open. So I run that every single week. I run it on Heartbeat, and it's just a really great place to like talk to other moms, see what life as a mom and entrepreneur look like, because we blend everything. So we've got like a village event discussion board where I'm in there like I can't get my son to go number 2 in the bathroom. Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And then we've got like a business support and brainstorming where I'm like, I'm about to launch this new offer. Can I get some feedback on XYZ? So it's
That's
literally
awesome.
super comprehensive. And we've got, I did one this morning actually. We have what I call espresso shots. I love coffee. Caffeine
Yeah.
is a thing for me. But we have espresso shots where they're like 20 to 30-minute fast strategy sessions that people come in and give tangible takeaways for your business, for yourself. So we've done like social media branding, we've done different kinds of like app development, lead generation, and then also done like sleep and like
Oh wow.
getting your kids to sleep, and mindset around business and motherhood. So it's just a really great place to come in and get a feel for what being a mom and being a business owner looks like if you run it all together. So a couple different areas that I'm able to support moms in. So I'm really glad about that.
That's awesome. I like how you just blend it all together.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't got to separate it out. It is, the grocery list runs with
Yeah.
your client list.
What is like the best way for our audience to connect with you or just learn more about like your grouping programs?
Yeah, so I am primarily on Instagram, drop in my DMs. I'm in there all the time. It's at Dana Foster Co. And then I've also got a YouTube channel and a podcast. So YouTube is also at Dana Foster Co. I kind of go through more of the teaching, different things you can do, different things you can try. I've got some mom and partner specific videos on YouTube to kind of show you some behind the scenes of what that looks like from just a relational aspect. And then on the podcast, it's Mama Means Business. And I repurpose a lot from YouTube, but there's also some really good conversations on there as well. So all of those platforms you can find me, and I love communicating with everybody and I respond to all the comments. So send any questions or thoughts my way.
Thanks so much, Dana. I'll share all your details in the show notes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
If you're a founder who wants real strategy, not noise, and you want someone in your corner helping you build a business that feels aligned, is profitable, and actually supports your life, you can apply for CFO on Call. This is my one-on-one financial partnership for established founders, typically making between $500K to $2 million, who want clarity, who want structure and confidence with their numbers. The link is in the show notes so you can schedule a profit strategy call, or you can DM me CFO on Instagram at Cindy Kumar and I'll send over all the details.